Oh, that's just grand. Absolutely grand. So this is the first year in 20 that we've tried to hunt moose with strictly a camera. We always go hunting moose for meat. And here we are in Algonquin Park, and so far we're not off to a great start. We have seen no moose sign. And at the last portage, I left my moose call, my birch bark moose call. So I'm going to have to try to make some crude thing today. I can call with my hands, that will work. But first of all, we've got to find sign. So those that have never hunted moose and think, well, it's pretty easy to see, not so much, because if you've got 20 moose in a 100 square mile area, that's considered a high population. So before you can call them in, you got to get in within earshot of them. Now the rut should be on, so if we can find some fresh sign, hopefully we'll be able to draw them in. Anyway, that's where we're at this morning, so I'm going to try to make some kind of a crude call, and I don't know whether we're going to strike camp or not, because it's not looking overly promising for weather. So we may just hang out for the day and head out tomorrow. So what we look for when I mention sign, what we're looking for there is the dominant bull will be the one that basically breeds the cows. There'll be immature bulls that'll follow them around, hoping to get an opportunity. But so what they do in sign, what we're looking for is you'll see areas where they've thrashed the ground up, and you'll see uprooted trees and shrubbery and what have you, and often tine marks in the soil where they're trying to drive off the dominant bulls, trying to drive off the younger bulls, if you would. The next thing we look for is browse. So they're transitioning this time of year from aquatic plant life. They spend much of the summer, spring and summer, in marshlands eating aquatic plants, and now they turn into eating buds. So it's a transitional period. But the one thing a moose will never do is get too far from water. Water is its escape from predators, wolves, bears, etc. So you're going to find them near water. You're going to find them on the edge of marshes. Rivers are good. So we're looking for those browsed off areas, and if you find a good one, it's just like a lawnmower went through it about 4.5 feet high, and they'll just browse that right off flat. The next thing we look for is rut pits. So the dominant bull will create these huge pits, sometimes 12 feet in diameter and quite often very deep. Then they urinate on them. And they'll make this big loop, often 25 miles, a radius, if you would, or diameter, if you would, this 25-mile circle, I should say. And they'll make these rut pits all along it. And the urine that they leave, it's a pheromone that the cows can smell, which attracts the cows. And they're also a very vocal animal, which lends itself to hunting them, because a hunter, like hunting turkey, is able to call in the bulls, and often the cows, by using a communication call. So by using a cow and heat call, we get a bull really, we get his attention, essentially. And if he hangs up on us, at that point we'll do a bull grunt. Now, the bull's very territorial, and if he thinks there's another bull there, if he's hung up out 200 or 300 yards, often that grunt will bring him just charging in. So that's what we're looking for. But that circle I'm talking about of those rut pits, often it can take it 4 to 5 days for that bull to make that circle. He's just going to keep going around those rut pits until he finds the cows and the breeding season's over. Anyway, we got our work cut out for us, because so far no sign at all. But I'm still hoping that we can strike camp today and get off and look for some. Okay, that's one really poor moose call, but yeah. So I've made dozens of moose calls, and I gift them to friends. I use birch bark because it's a natural sound. And when I make them, they're about that long, which is about the length of a moose's nose. So it projects really well, it sounds really good. And this little guy, well, there's a wet spot back here behind our camp over the ridge. So I'm going to go down there and give a couple of calls. This This is actually one of the smaller white pines that you'll find in Algonquin Park. It's not uncommon to find them well in excess of 100 feet, 120 feet, and 3 to 4 feet in diameter. Anyway, yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. All right, got a little wetland down here. Down below, I'm going to go see if my moose call works. So this type of area is actually ideal habitat for moose. And there are some old sign in here of where they walk through. They like to sort of walk around the perimeters of these wetlands, come down to get a drink. And these ridges that we see over here and on the other side of the wetland here, there are places where during the middle of the day they'll go up and they'll bed down. So good spot. Like I say, old sign, no new sign, but we're going to do a cow and heat call here with my pathetic little moose call. Probably be better with my hands. So my old oilcloth here, I've had this thing for almost 30 years, and I've carried it on all my historic treks, winter, summer, doesn't matter the season, and it's got a few patches on it. In fact, it's got patches on its patches. But anyway, we've had 3 days of on-off rain. Mostly it's rained hard at night. Been a problem getting fires going, but I got this guy going, and I'm going to set my bedroll right here tonight and see if this thing will serve me well one more time. Anyway, I do like sleeping out like this, and we're going to see if it'll keep me semi-dry. If not comfortable, tolerable. perfect end to the perfect day. So we actually had success today on our moose hunt. We're pretty limited in the amount of time we had. We got other commitments. So we had 5 days and we weren't finding any sign, but earlier this morning, Kathy found some new sign, and we kept prodding around and we found some new scrapes, and we went out and called, and we called in 3 moose this afternoon, and we called them out across a black spruce bog, and he came right up onto what I thought was an old logging road, but it turns out it's an old farmer's lane, because there was a farm here in this part of Algonquin back in the late 1800s. Now I don't know the exact history, but I can take you for a little walk over here and show you the footprint of the cabin. I find it pretty fascinating that somebody actually tried to farm here. Yeah, I don't know whether it was to feed the logging camps at the time. It certainly predates Algonquin Park. But anyway, let's have a look at the foundation. So I'm probably not too far off in thinking that that was the front door, because it faces the lake, or the short little river that runs through here. So yeah, I'm standing inside of what was a farmstead, and I'm going to have to delve into the actual history of it. But there's all kinds of remnants around. There's an old cast iron cook stove. The top's there, the chimney cap's there. There's wash tubs and what have you laying about. But the size of it would indicate, like I've talked about previously, they didn't build big buildings because they simply didn't have the time or energy. So I definitely have to look into the history. I need to know a wee bit of history about this place. But I think what I'm looking at, the mounds that you see, I suspect if one were to dig down in them, they'd probably find remnants of the sill logs of the actual cabin. Anyway, fascinating. There's a number of smaller excavations back further, whether they were root cellars or maybe even one about half this size. It may very well have been the first cabin, and it might have had a cellar that would have been served as a root cellar for them. Anyway, lots to find out about this history, and I'm quite excited. When I get home, I'm going to definitely look into this. This hunting with a camera is rather addictive. So we're heading out for one last hunt this morning before we paddle out. We just strike our camp and such. But yesterday, to reiterate what happened yesterday, so we did call out three moose. We only saw 2 fully that we could identify the sex. A nice bull at about 60 yards. Had we been hunting with guns, the hunt would have been over because he was broadside at 60 yards. And at the same time, Kathy was filming that one, a cow crossed about 100 yards in the opposite direction. And then in the afternoon, I went out and I hunted from a tree where I could get a bigger view of this black spruce bog, if you would. And although I didn't see it, I heard the darn thing coming in. And at one point, about 70 yards off to my right, I just see this wall of black going through the spruce. Couldn't identify the gender of it. So yeah, we're hooked. We're off to see if we can get some better footage this morning. Okay, no luck with the moose this morning, but and we're striking our camp now and heading out. You can hardly call it unsuccessful. We've had a great trip in here, and the opportunity to be here, maybe privilege is a better word, to be able to canoe these beautiful lakes and rivers of Algonquin. But a wee bit of history about the moose. The word moose is a French word that comes from the native word moose, Now, I'm not sure if it was Algonquin, Huron, or Anishinaabe, one of those three nations called the moose moose. And moose translated from their tongue means bark eater. So during the summer they eat aquatic plant life, but grasses and other things. But in the wintertime they sustain themselves solely on the buds of trees, and hence the word bark eater. A couple of things that are happening today. Yesterday, our brief exposure to them, I think, was brief because they winded us. So, if you visualize the nose on a moose, its sense of smell is second to none. Its eyesight's very poor, though, but its hearing is that of a horse. So they got huge ears, and they constantly rotate and move forward and to the sides and backwards to try to pick up any sign of danger. So hearing, scent's good, sight's poor, and I'm pretty sure they scented us yesterday. So we were unable to get some really good footage, but we did see 3 moose. Pretty excited about that. And right now we're packing up now because it's midday. And so they've been following those rut pits all night, and they're exhausted. They're also growing a winter coat, and today's balmy. I've peeled down to 1 layer now, and they get hot. So they'll go up onto ridges to bed midday. That's where they would be right now, sitting up in the hardwoods, where it's perhaps a bit cooler, but they also want to be up there because they can sense the danger. They can see it, smell it, hear it if they're at a high point. So they're bedded down and we're heading out, and just got a bit of a kit to get packed here, and I'm looking forward to the paddle out.